this episode of Symposium on the Sea, we're going to be covering some news stories. Hope you enjoy it. Hey, welcome to another installment of Symposium on the Sea. I'm John Gagney. And now it's time to get underway and look at some news stories. First, we go to Israel. And I want to say for the record that I support Israel, and I believe what the Bible says, that those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. I thank God for the 4 hostages that were rescued on June 8th, 2024 in that covert military operation. Hamas also claims that 274 Palestinian civilians were killed in that operation, and Benjamin Netanyahu says that he will not stop until Hamas is defeated. And of course, the left has a problem with that. The left always seems to take the wrong side of an issue. You know what? That's what you get when you attack and you take hostages. You can expect death. If Hamas wanted to stop this, they would lay down their arms, surrender, and give back the hostages. Now, in my research on this story, I hear that the hostages were held by Hamas soldiers in locked rooms. Then I hear they were being held by civilians. So which is it? It's no secret that the kids in their schools are being taught to hate Israel and to kill Israelis. Shortly after the attack on October 7th, there was a story of one of the fighters who was involved in the attack, and he recorded it, he filmed it, and he was Instagramming his parents, and he was all excited that he had their blood on him, and his parents were very excited to hear the good news. This is the kind of monsters that we're dealing with. You bet they have to be defeated. All they understand is force. Teams worked for weeks strategizing what they were going to do to free the hostages, and then they came in with what looked like aid trucks, and they were all filled with soldiers and special forces right in broad daylight, and they kicked some butt and got the job done. Unfortunately, Arnon Zamora, an Israeli police officer, was critically wounded and eventually died from his wounds, leaving behind a wife and two children. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with top Israeli opposition leaders as the United States continues to push for a truce deal in Gaza. Oh, you keep on hearing two-state solution, two-state solution. They don't want a two-state solution. They want Israel wiped off the map. These people keep on saying that are idiots. I will take the liberty myself to speak for the United States of America. Mr. Netanyahu, go ahead and ignore the opposition and get the job done and defeat Hamas. I would say let me be clear, but that phrase doesn't mean anything anymore. Instead, I will be direct. If Israel stops their attack on Hamas, Hamas will consider that a victory and regroup and kill more Israelis. Hamas needs to be utterly defeated if you want less death. Donald Trump has been convicted. He's been a convicted felon now for a while, and I'm sure that has helped him in the polls. And if you've been watching my videos, you know that I don't believe, even if we could get the most conservative and godly president, that would necessarily save our nation. And feel free to disagree with me if you want, and I'd really like to hear your comments on this. But I believe the church is the problem. We're not being good stewards of this country. We don't speak up about evil anymore. We don't use our cultural power as we once did. What do you expect? Of course this country is going off the rails. You know what surprises me is that we lasted this long. So let me talk about Donald Trump and his convictions from that sham trial. After a dramatic 6 weeks of trial and 1.5 days of deliberation, the jury found Donald Trump guilty on all 34 counts. No surprise there. The former president now faces a July 11th sentencing hearing, after which his attorneys are expected to appeal the verdict. In other news, 2 couples from Vermont are barred from fostering children because of their Christian belief on sexuality. Brian Woty, sorry if I butchered your name, is a Baptist pastor and a high school math teacher, and his wife Caitlin of 14 years leads a bi-women's, no, if it was bi-women's, they'd be fine. No, a bi-weekly Bible study and homeschools their 5 children. By the way, I'm a huge fan of homeschooling. Brian Gant is a pastor from another church, and his wife Rebecca, of 25 years, raises their 7 children. They became foster parents in 2016. Both families believe that God created everyone in his image and that sex is binary and fixed by God at conception, and all people deserve respect and love. You know, that's a really good point, because they're teaching in public schools in the left's agenda that conservative Christian people hate homosexuals, and that's not true. At least it's not supposed to be. We're supposed to, that's very anti-Christian. We're supposed to love people, and if you love people, you tell them the truth. And God calls homosexuality a sin. So yeah, that's really bad for the kids. I guess Vermont would rather have children have no home than to place them in a loving home with people who live out their Christian faith. That's the thing. You can call yourself a Christian if you want. You get in trouble when you actually live it out and take it in the public square. Did you hear that, church? The Biden administration has openly given Ukraine permission to strike inside Russia. Okay, sure. Let's start World War III there, Sleepy Joe. Russia has staged warships and submarines near Cuba and Venezuela. This is insane. We've been given Ukraine weapons and talking about it openly. All Vladimir needs to do is listen to the news to know what the U.S. is doing. Also, we've been giving Ukraine lots of money with no financial accountability. No problem here, right? Anthony Fauci confesses that COVID guidelines weren't based on science. Yeah, no duh. Who'd see that coming? Check out this clip of Fauci testifying before the House Select Committee.
Mr. Fauci, you were quoted on CBS Face the Nation saying it's easy to criticize, but they're really criticizing science because I represent science. Do you represent science, Mr. Fauci?
I am a scientist who uses the scientific method to gain information.
Yes, you said you represent science. Do you represent science, Mr. Fauci? Yes or no? Yes or no?
No, that's not a yes or no answer.
Yes, it's a yes or no.
I don't think it is.
Okay, well, we'll take that as a you don't know what you represent.
Oh,
But this, as director of the NIH, you did sign off on these so-called scientific experiments. And as a dog lover, I want to tell you this is disgusting and evil, what you signed off on, and these experiments that happened to beagles paid for by the American taxpayer. And I want you to know Americans don't pay their taxes for animals to be tortured like this. So the type of science that you are representing, Mr. Fauci, is abhorrent, and it needs to stop. Mr. Fauci, you also represent the type of science where you confess that you made up the COVID rules, including
I didn't hear what you
6
said.
feet social distancing and masking of children.
I never said I made anything up.
You admitted that you made it up. You
I
made it
didn't
up
say
as you went.
I made it up.
So are you saying this is fake news, Mr. Fauci?
I didn't say I made anything up.
What did you say?
I said that it is not based in science and it just appeared.
But this is science.
What does dogs have to do with anything that we're talking about today?
These are scientific experiments. This is what you signed off on. But you also told the American people they had to distance by 6 feet. They had to wear masks. But let's also talk a little bit further about the type of science that you represent. NIH scientists made $710 million in royalties from drug makers, a fact that's been hidden. Let's talk about the fact about, is it right for scientists and doctors getting paid by the American people, government taxpayer paychecks, to get patents where they're paid millions and hundreds of millions of dollars in royalty fees, especially when the NIH and these government agencies, most powerful agencies in our country, are recommending medical suggestions and advice and making up guidelines like 6 feet distancing and masking of children. Do you think that's appropriate? Do the American people deserve to be abused like that, Mr. Fauci? Because you're not doctor, you're Mr. Fauci in my few minutes. No, I don't need your answer. I want to talk about this right here.
Mr. Chairman,
Fauci,
objection.
Objection. I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time, Mr. Raskin.
Gentlelady will suspend.
Mr. Chairman,
Point of order.
Just in terms of the rules of decorum, are we allowed to deny that a doctor is a doctor just because we don't want him to be a doctor?
Yes, because in my time, that man does not deserve to have a license. As a matter of fact, it should be revoked and he belongs in
Gentleman,
prison.
Fauci is a fraud and needs to be locked up at best, after a fair trial, of course. Also, I thought this was interesting. Listen to what Google says when you do a search on Marjorie Taylor Greene.
According to Wikipedia, Marjorie Taylor Greene, sometimes referred to by her initials MTG, is an American far-right politician, businesswoman, and conspiracy theorist who has been the U.S. representative for Georgia's 14th congressional district since 2021.
Do you like Google trying to form your opinions for you? I don't. I'm kind of old-fashioned about that. I like to think for myself. As you might know, I'm a big fan of Glenn Beck, and he does a great job of calling out evil in this country and encouraging people to have faith in God. But I guess Google Playbooks doesn't like me finding 2 of his audiobooks. Check out this when I look for The Great Reset and Dark Future. Okay, you guys, so basically what I'm doing now is I'm looking on Google Play Books. I want to find the audiobook. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. Can't find Great Reset or Dark Future here. Interesting, huh? Yeah, so this is just another example of Google trying to control what you see. Let me decide what I want to see or listen to. So moving right along, in other news, an armed self-defense group patrols the streets of Hartford, Connecticut to combat violent crime. The armed group calls themselves the Self-Defense Brigade, and they have legally armed citizens. And that's good because police are getting scarce as hen's teeth. The group also uses drones and cameras with monitoring feeds, and they put them where potential crimes are being committed. The group's founder, Cornell Lewis, is upset at the Democrats, saying the Democrat machine in Hartford is either unwilling or unable or incapable of doing it, and people are paying their tax dollars and they're really not getting any kind of service. In other news, a teenager uses martial arts training to take down and choke out a man suspected of stealing his car. 18-year-old Gavin Archer is being hailed for using his mixed martial arts training. Good job, Gavin. Well, there you go. This wraps up this installment of Symposium on the Sea. And I want to thank you for watching, and I'd really appreciate your feedback. If you go to my website, leave a comment, and let me know how I can make this better. Okay, till next time.